Thank you all for coming together to celebrate my wife's birthday. In our family, this has become an annual tradition. Today, we've prepared some steak. By the way, I got some top-grade meat for my wife and son, said my husband John with a smile during our family dinner. He seemed to have prepared a fancy barbecue for today, and the table was lined with meat. Everyone smiled, drawn in by John's happiness. However, I was the only one frowning, my brow furrowed. Premium steak as an annual tradition. This was news to me. I was just thinking about this when a glass of ice water was placed in front of me, packed to the brim with ice. "Mom, here you go. I prepared it today," said my son Joaquin, bringing the ice water. It looked like a perfectly normal scene, but the relatives had questions in their eyes. That's because Joaquin had purposely moved all the meat in front of me aside, made space, and placed the ice water there. Joaquin is such a good boy, preparing water for Mom. But if you move the meat, Mom can't eat, can she? Today is Mom's birthday, so Dad has prepared some really good meat. Joaquin, eat lots with Mom today, my in-laws said, addressing the lone glass of ice water in front of me. Looking puzzled, Joaquin said, Mom always just has water on her birthday. That's normal. Dad always says so." None of the relatives could immediately understand what Joaquin said, but my husband's face clearly changed color. This single glass of ice water would lead to a lifetime of regret for him. That was certain. "Hey, Joaquin, what do you mean Mom only ever has water? Can you explain that to Grandma?" my mother-in-law asked amid the confused silence of the relatives. Unperturbed, Joaquin began to describe the usual situation. "You know, Mom always just handles the steak for Dad and me. She never eats any meat herself. She only drinks water. Dad tells her, 'You're fine with just water.'" "What does that mean? Was Dad harassing Mom? It seems so, doesn't it? I don't want to believe John would do such a thing, but Joaquin doesn't seem to be lying. What kinds of things has my husband been doing to me regularly?" The in-laws looked troubled as Joaquin spoke, and the rest of the family was buzzing with agitation. "Hey, Dad, Mom, and everyone. Why are you making such a fuss? There's no way I'd do something like that. Joaquin must be mistaken. Don't take a child's word for it," John said, "but is that really the case? I hoped it was just a misunderstanding by Joaquin. But with a little kid like Joaquin, might he just be saying what he sees?" I didn't want to believe John would do that either. The realization spread, causing a stir. John vehemently denied it, but his excuses that Joaquin was just a child seemed less believable. Seeing the in-laws' reactions and realizing they weren't convinced, John became even more agitated and turned to me. "Come on, Kelly, tell them I haven't been harassing you, right?" His gaze, sharp as a knife, almost seemed threatening. "Oh, don't say anything unnecessary is what you want to say, but it's written all over your face." Normally threatened by my husband, I endured it, so although I immediately understood what he wanted, this time I couldn't back down. I decided to answer his question with a slight tilt of my head. "What? Not harassing? Isn't just giving me ice water on our anniversary a form of harassment or abuse?" "What? Hey, Kelly, what are you saying?" John's expression transformed as if confronted with an unexpected crisis, his face showing panic and uncertainty. Meanwhile, the in-laws and relatives were taken aback by my confession, unable to hide their confusion. Conversation stalled and murmurs spread through the room. "Everyone, calm down. This must be some mistake. Kelly and Joaquin are trying to frame me. If anyone's been harassed, it's me. Believe me." John's attempt to shift the blame to us was astounding, but without proof, I would only confuse the in-laws and other relatives further. Now was the only chance to expose John's true nature. I thought that I couldn't start talking right away because if I spoke now, Joaquin would hear everything. I didn't want Joaquin to hear, so the first thing was to have him move to another room. Sister, I'm sorry to ask, but could you take Whacken to another room? I have something to discuss that's not suitable for him to hear. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. It must be something very important then. Okay, Whacken, let's go play in another room with Auntie. Yeah, got it, Whacken said, moving obediently with my sister-in-law. With Whacken out of the room, I could now proceed with the conversation with peace of mind. This was the real battle. Thinking this, I took a deep breath to steady my nerves before beginning. Everyone, please watch this video. Once I confirmed that Whacken and my sister-in-law had moved to another room, I took out the laptop I had prepared and showed them a video. The video showed the following scenes. Come on, you didn't even greet me when I came home from work. Haven't I always said to greet me within 5 seconds of me coming home? I'm sorry, I was busy preparing dinner and couldn't leave it. What? Dinner's not ready yet? You're too slow. This was a recording from when John came home from work, but I also showed everyone a video from mealtime. What is this meal? It's too awful to eat. I'll do this with it. Hey, what are you doing? Throwing a meal in the trash is terrible. Shut up. Don't defy me. It's your fault for only being able to make terrible meals. My husband John's verbal abuse was clearly captured in the video. The verbal abuse took place in various locations, and some scenes even matched what Whacken had told his grandmother. Wait a minute. How did you manage to record this video? John was frantic, not knowing he was being recorded. It proved he thought too little of me, assuming I was incapable of doing anything. The things you've done to me were so terrible that I had to install surveillance cameras to gather evidence. As I said this, the in-laws also saw the video and were convinced that my story was true. What's the meaning of this, John? What stupid thing have you been doing? It's just too much. Poor Kelly. Not only that, but you tried to deceive us too. They added, No, this isn't right. Dad, Mom, please calm down. That's right. Kelly is making all this up. John tried to excuse himself, but even at this point, he refused to admit the truth. His excuses weren't believable. The video was too convincing. It's unbelievable that Kelly would fabricate a video. What would she gain from that? Exactly as Dad says, and didn't it also show what Whacken was talking about just now? As the in-laws berated John, the other relatives chimed in with voices of agreement. Damn it, John said, realizing that nothing he said would make a difference. He hung his head in defeat. John, why would you do something like this? His father pressed. John, resigned, began to explain why he had been abusing me. I work for a major company and everyone there holds me in high regard. One day I was entrusted with a big task. John started. That's great, but what does that have to do with abusing Kelly? One of the in-laws asked. Although John's success at work was true, it had nothing to do with his harassment of me. The in-laws looked perplexed as they listened to him. Being expected to perform is fine, but it became too much. I began to feel unable to meet those expectations and was nearly crushed by the pressure. I understand that feeling, but you should have talked it over with your colleagues. You're not doing the job alone. Someone said, if I did that, it would seem like I can't handle my job. I didn't want to be seen that way by others. Once I thought about it, I couldn't bring myself to discuss it, and the stress just built up. That's why I took it out on Kelly. She never talked back, and it started to feel good. John's stress built up due to his excessive pride, and because I didn't talk back, his behavior escalated. Just because your work isn't going well, you have no right to hurt Kelly. Another in-law scolded. Releasing stress is necessary, but the way you're doing it is all wrong. You're not just hurting Kelly, but Whacken too. You need to think about how your actions affect your family. That's right. Since you're married, Kelly would have listened to what's been going on with you. Acting so foolishly is truly pitiful, added another. With that, the in-laws scolded John, thinking of me and Whacken. Confronted with how foolish his actions were, John knelt before me and began to apologize. Kelly, I was wrong. There's no one more important to me than you and Wacken. I'm truly sorry for hurting you both, he said multiple times, showing true remorse. John, look up. Kelly, can you forgive me? One of the relatives asked. As I spoke gently to John, he smiled briefly, but then froze, noticing something in my hand. What? That picture? Why do you have that? John's face turned pale as he looked closely at the photo. Mom, Dad, please look at this, I said, holding up a photo of an unknown woman and girl. What is this? Who are these people in the photo? Mom, do you know them? No, I don't know her. Kelly, can you tell us who these people are? They are John's other wife and his child. What? Are you serious? Does that mean John has been cheating? I can't believe this. John, maybe you should have given that premium meat to your other wife and your child, not me. No, Kelly, what are you talking about? Other wife and a child. You're saying some strange things. John desperately tried to laugh it off. The in-laws watched our interaction with stern faces and began to press John for the truth. John, tell us the truth. If this is true, it's unforgivable. Abusing your wife and then a secret wife and child? There's no taking that back. Dad, Mom, what are you talking about? I haven't cheated. Don't jump to conclusions just because of one photo. It was like when Wacken revealed the harassment. John thought he could make us believe it was all a misunderstanding. I needed to make it clear that he was gravely mistaken, so I played my next card. I don't just have one photo of the other wife and child. I have a whole collection. John, can you still deny your affairs after seeing these? Why do you have such photos? John held his head and muttered weakly when I handed them to him, thinking there was no way out. The photos were numerous, showing John happily dining at a stylish restaurant with his other wife, walking arm in arm through the streets, and playing in the park, looking like a real family. I had been suspecting John's infidelity for some time, so I hired a detective, but I never expected to gather this much evidence. Damn it, why did you suspect me of cheating? John must have thought he hadn't been acting suspiciously, confused about why he was caught. He was flustered. Of course, I had reasons for noticing something was off about him recently. John, you've been prioritizing work too much. What are you talking about? That can't be helped. Like I said earlier, I was assigned responsible tasks at work. That might be true, but you were canceling plans with me and Wacken too often. It was as if our plans never existed. That made me suspicious. If he had just valued his time with me and Wacken a little more, I wouldn't have suspected him of cheating and wouldn't have hired a detective. The surveillance cameras were initially installed to catch him cheating. John, you were always cheating while on business trips. That's why the surveillance couldn't catch the cheating, but it did catch your abuse, which was good enough. Damn it, how did it come to this? Everything that had happened was the result of the seeds he had sown. If he had considered what he had been doing all along, he might have realized sooner. But John hung his head as if to say this wasn't supposed to happen. So it really is true that you've been cheating. How much more do you need to hurt Kelly and Wacken before you're satisfied? One in-law asked. With so much evidence gathered, the in-laws and other relatives surrounded John, glaring at him. John, we are disowning you? That's okay with you, right, Mom? Yes, of course, Dad. You said it well. Of course, we should also get divorced. I'll be asking for alimony and child support, so be prepared, I said, following the in-laws. I declared my intention to divorce John. I thought maybe this would make him reflect a little and regret what he had done, but it seems my hopes were too optimistic. Oh, is that so? Then do whatever you like. I'll gladly leave, John said defiantly. Do you even understand what you're saying? I asked, shocked by his attitude. Unbelievably, John was still defiant. I originally intended to use Kelly as a housekeeper. She was quiet and obedient, which made her convenient and easy to manipulate. John confessed. So you only saw me that way? I hadn't expected such a blunt declaration, but strangely, I wasn't as shocked as I might have been. Perhaps I had already sensed John's feelings. Was every time you were nice to me in front of others just an act? I asked. Did you just realize that now? If I prepare top-quality meat for you in front of everyone, they'll think I'm a good husband. I thought you'd be easy to fool since you're so simple. John laughed wickedly. I was truly appalled by his change in demeanor. I plan to divorce Kelly and start over with my new family. I'll work hard for them and make sure I get ahead, John declared confidently. Enough already. How much more do you need to embarrass yourself in front of people? Listening to you is truly embarrassing. The in-laws shouted. The other relatives agreed, some even looking ready to physically confront John. Scary, scary. Say whatever you want. It doesn't bother me one bit. John sneered. He probably thought he could easily pay the alimony and child support and continue his life with his job, other wife, and secret child, but he didn't understand anything. To deliver the final blow, I decided to reveal a fact unknown to John. Unfortunately for you, John, things won't go your way. What are you talking about? Sore losing looks ugly on you, he retorted. It's not about losing. I know your other wife has been deceiving you. What? What are you talking about? What do you know about her? Didn't I tell you I had a detective investigate? It turns out she's been planning to take your money all along. That can't be true. John's complacent smile disappeared, replaced by flustered disbelief. When I met your other wife directly, she said, John is just an ATM. No, that's a lie. We even have a child together. John truly believed his other wife loved him and thought the girl born to them was his child. But there was a hidden fact about that girl John didn't know. That girl isn't your child, John. Your other wife has multiple men, and the child is one of theirs. Shut up. Don't make stuff up. She's not that kind of person. Who are you to say that? Despite neglecting me and Wacken, John still believed strongly in his other wife. In the end, both my husband and his other wife were just two peas in a pod. Why don't you just give up? John, you're being used for your money. How can I believe anything you say? Enough. I'll find out the truth from her, John said, taking out his smartphone to call his other wife. It's a lie, right? He muttered, but the number was not in service. Could it be that what Kelly said is true? I told you I've already looked into it, I said calmly. John struggled to accept the reality, repeatedly trying to call his other wife, but the results remained the same. The calls didn't go through. Damn, the phone won't connect. Looks like I'll have to find her myself. John, wait. It's dangerous to do that. What now? What's so dangerous? Didn't I say your other wife is involved with multiple men? Some of them are dangerous. If they find out, you could be targeted. What? What am I supposed to do then? By this point, John had stopped doubting me. He was trembling in fear, realizing he might be targeted. They might even come to your company. That's bad. The company can't get involved. Come on, Kelly. Help me out. We're married, aren't we? John seemed to finally understand the gravity of the situation and was now asking for my help. But no matter how much he pleaded, I had no intention to assist him. We're getting divorced, so we'll be ex-spouses soon. I have no intention of helping you after you've deceived me, your parents, and all our relatives for so long. And above all, I can't forgive you for hurting Wacken. That's so cold. Dad, Mom, anyone, please, I'm begging you. John pleaded desperately with his in-laws and relatives, but his words reached no one. After looking at each other, his father-in-law firmly told him, I don't know anything about it. I've disowned you. Handle it yourself. This wasn't supposed to happen. John faced the consequences of his actions all at once, completely abandoned by all his relatives and filled with regret. I later heard from the in-laws that to avoid dangerous people, he had to quit his job and started moving from place to place. John is apparently managing to make ends meet by working day jobs to pay for the alimony. As for me, I received offers of help from my in-laws and relatives. Hey, Callie, I want to introduce you to a job that would be perfect for you. Would you consider working there? I think it's a good opportunity for you. Thank you so much, but I want to find a job on my own for Wacken's sake too and do my best. After divorcing John, I decided to take a job and raise Wacken. I truly appreciate their kindness, but I can't rely solely on their generosity. I want to do my best on my own for Wacken's sake. It's a step towards changing the weaker version of myself who couldn't muster the courage and just complied with John's demands. There will undoubtedly be many challenges ahead, but I believe that as long as Wacken and I are together, we'll be okay. I have to become a strong mother for him.